Yo, what is going on, guys? And welcome back to 365 Analytics. And today is Friday, August 29th, officially only 6 days out of the 2025 NFL kickoff between the Cowboys and the Eagles next Thursday. And we are 9 days away from the first official NFL Sunday. So, today, as you guys may know, I do a lot of Bengals specific stuff on this channel. And today, we are going to be doing my full, in depth, all 17 game prediction of the 2025 Cincinnati Bengals schedule, what I think their record will be, how I think each game will shake up, and how I think that they will end up doing this regular season. So, without further ado, if you guys do enjoy, please like, subscribe to the channel. That would all be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's get right into the prediction. We start off on the opening Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. on Fox, the Battle of Ohio. The Cincinnati Bengals will go to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, they're starting Joe Flacco. He will be their starter for this game. At least he will start the season at the very least. The Browns not expected to be anything special this year. Expected to be like a 4 or 5 win team. Expected to be the bottom of the AFC North. And the Bengals. This is a team who has expectations without a doubt. The defense is a little rocky. People are not high on the defense, but the offense should be elite. The Bengals have stressed slow starts for the past few years now, starting 0-2 for the past 3 seasons, I believe 22, 23, 24. They started 0-2 all three of those seasons, with starting 0-3 last year. They've changed things up this offseason. Burrow and the starters played in 2 preseason games. They started practicing in training camp in the morning. I think the Bengals are going to come ready. They know the consequences of losing a game early in the season. Last year, obviously, they lost to the New England Patriots week 1, and that win and that loss was the difference between them being in the Denver Broncos 7 seed. Instead, the Broncos went 9-8, made it, or the Broncos went 10-7, made the playoffs, and got that 7 seed. But if the Bengals beat the Patriots, they would have been in that spot. So that's the consequences of losing games early in the season. Without further ado, I'm taking the Bengals start 1-0. I do not see them dropping this game. 41-year-old Joe Flacco, I think he'll put up some points. I think he'll be able to make some throws. Al Golden, first game as defensive coordinator. But, I mean, the Bengals have to win this game. They know that. They need a strong start. Zach Taylor knows that for his job security. I think they're going to end up getting it done. Game number 2, home opener in Paycor Stadium. It is the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The home opener, as I said, open in orange. It will be an orange out in Paycor Stadium this day. And the Jaguars, a team that, again, did not have a very good year last year. They underachieved a little bit. Trevor Lawrence ended the season with an injury. He was banged up all year, but he is fully healthy going to the season. New head coach Liam Cohen against Zach Taylor. Again, the NFL is these are 2 games that you're starting the season with that you absolutely should win, and there should be no debate about it. And I think the Bengals are going to pick up a second game. I think they're going to start 2-0 here. I think they're going to get it done at home, home opener. I'm not going to underestimate the Jacksonville Jaguars because I think they might be a little bit better than people might think this season. My full predictions will be out next Wednesday. I think they're going to be a little bit better than people think. I really do believe that. But we'll see how it ends up being. I think the Bengals will end up starting 2-0 with the win against the Jaguars. Okay. Game 3, US Bank Stadium in Minnesota taking on the Vikings. Joe Burrow versus JJ McCarthy. Games in Minnesota, things to note. Joe Burrow is 2-0 versus the Minnesota Vikings in his career. Actually, he's 1-0. He's 1-0 versus the Vikings. But the last 2 times the Bengals and Vikings have played, the Bengals came away with a win. The most recent time Jake Browning played on a Saturday game against them. But Joe Burrow is undefeated technically versus the Minnesota Vikings. The last 2 matchups, Zach Taylor and the Bengals have had the Minnesota Vikings number. This time it's in Minnesota. The last 2 times it was in Cincinnati. I am high on the Vikings this year. I might have said that on the channel over these past few months. I think they're going to be a good football team. I think the world of Kevin O'Connell. I think he's one of the best head coaches in the NFL. top 10, if not top 5. I think he's that good. I think you could put anybody at quarterback, and Kevin O'Connell might be able to do something with him. I think the Vikings have a great defense. I think they have great players. Brian Flores, arguably the best coordinator in the entire NFL. I'm going to say this is the first game the Bengals drop in Minnesota. Tough matchup on the road. 1 o'clock, the premier CBS game. Nance and Romo will be on the call for this one. Give me the Vikings to give the Bengals their first loss. Okay, we get to week 4. Two teams who, spoiler alert a little bit, I think will be playoff teams. Spoiler alert on the Bengals one. I think the Bengals will be a playoff team. I'm saying that right now. Monday Night Football, a part of a doubleheader, a rematch of last season, one of the best games of the year last year between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Denver Broncos. This game will be in Mile High Stadium. Two teams I think high of this year. The Bengals, obviously, the offense, the flashy offense of Burrow, Chase, Higgins, the wide receivers, the weapons all across the field. When you look at the Broncos, it's the defense. It's the opposite story. Pat Surtain, Nick Bonito. Like, they have guys. They have guys on that defense. It's totally opposite. But you can argue the best offense in the NFL versus you can argue the best defense in the NFL. Who will prevail? This should be a good matchup. I think both these teams will be playoff teams. Another thing to note, Joe Burrow is also 2-0 versus the Denver Broncos in his career. 2021, I believe it was. I think they had like a 15-10 win or something. It was something crazy. It was like a low scoring win versus the Broncos. And then last year, obviously, a crazy game at Paycor Stadium. T. Higgins catches the game winning touchdown in overtime. Monday Night Football prime time. The Bengals are 2-1. You do not want to drop two in a row going into a tough stretch. This is going to be a big, big stretch for the Bengals here, week 5 through 7. These three teams right here. But I am going to take the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow will improve to 3-0 versus the Denver Broncos. I think the offense matched up well last year. I think T. Higgins versus Riley Moss was a big mismatch last year. Let's see if we see more of that. Pat Surtain will always be guarding Chase. I mean, Chase had a decent game last year. The first time Surtain and Chase met, Chase only had like one catch for 15 yards. So overall, I'd say Surtain kind of has his number, but a little bit of a small sample size. Chase had a decent game in the game last year, but I think the Bengals will win this Monday Night Football game and improve to 3-1. Week 5, we're 3-1, returning home to Paycor Stadium to take on the Cats of the NFC. It is the Detroit Lions going into Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Dan Campbell and the Lions are a good football program, man. Dan Campbell gets the most out of his players. He's a player's coach. He's gritty. He's hard nosed, and he knows how to coach in football. It will be a story of offenses taking head to head here. Obviously, the big story with the Lions going on the offseason lost both coordinators, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, both out the door. Do I think the Lions will regress heavily? I'll explain that more in the record predictions next week. But if it gives you any hint, I'm taking the Lions to win this game, and the Bengals drop their first game at home on the year after starting 1-0. The Lions, I just think they might do a little bit too much to our defense. I don't think our defense will have the best game in this game. 425, 3-1. They're coming off hot. I mean, the Lions, I just think they'll get this one. I think they'll score some points. I think it will be a great football game. It will be a close football game, but the Lions will eventually prevail in the end. Okay, next up, week 6, we go to Lambeau Field. Everybody saw yesterday. I made a video on it. Micah Parsons is now a Green Bay Packer. That's just great. He's on the Bengals schedule again. So the Packers got better. I was low on the Packers. I'm not going to lie. I was low on them. In my heart, I was thinking I might put them last in the NFC North. I was between them and Chicago. I was like, do I think Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson will be enough to get past Green Bay? They just added Micah Parsons. That will be a big, big addition and a big loss for the Cowboys. He is one of the very best defensive players in the league, if not the best, you can argue. But I had the Bengals winning this game before, and I am not changing my pick. I'm going to take the Bengals to go into Lambeau Field, 425 on CBS. This will probably be another Nance and Romo game. I am going to take them to go into Lambeau Field and beat the Green Bay Packers with a good pass rush versus An offensive line that's going to have some big tests this year. Aiden Hutchinson's on the schedule. Jonathan Grenard's on the schedule. Nick Benito. I mean, obviously you have Micah Parsons now. You have T.J. Watt twice. You have Miles Garrett twice. There is going to be some big tests ahead. Week 7, Thursday Night Football. Steelers at Bengals, white Bengal game in Paycor Stadium. I will be in attendance for this one. Finally, I will be going to a whiteout game. Short week, Thursday night at home, division rival. I'm not betting against Joe Burrow at home in a whiteout game. Division rival. You're starting the season 4-2. Defense is playing decent football. Offense is looking great. Short week, I think at home will give you the advantage on a short week. Home division game, whiteout. The place will be rocking. I'm not taking anything against Joe Burrow there. I am taking the Bengals to win that game against the Steelers and start 2-0 in the AFC North. You understand how big that is for the Bengals this year to win some division games? They've had struggles versus the division in the past. Everybody clamored they built to beat the Bills and Chiefs before the Ravens, Browns, and Steelers. That's what everybody said. But I'm taking the Bengals to start the season 5-2. Now, week 8. New York Jets, Cincinnati Bengals. Ring of Honor game for the Bengals. Another home game. Bengals have 3 straight home games in this stretch. And 5-2 start. I'm gonna ride the hot hand. The game's at home. It's a Ring of Honor game. The Bengals want to win the Ring of Honor game. There's no doubt about that. They lost the Ring of Honor game to Washington last year. A bad loss to go to 0-3. I don't think highly of the Jets this year. I think they're going in the right direction with the rebuild. But I think clearly the Bengals are the better team, and there's no doubt. Give me the Bengals start 6-2. Everybody's gonna be on. Oh, biased. Everybody's gonna be on that 6-2 start for the Bengals. Exactly what they needed to be in the thick of the playoff race going into the bye week, going towards the bye week, I should say. But that's exactly what the Bengals needed. Week 9, Chicago Bears. Week before the bye week. Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, fiery offense, Romo Dunze in year 2, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland now, the offense. Additions to the defense, Grady Jarrett, Deo Odeyingbo, Jalen Johnson still there. I think they could surprise some people. I know everybody's high on the Bears every single year, and it never comes to fruition, but we'll see how much Ben Johnson can bring to the offense and how much he can improve Caleb Williams. A new and improved offensive line. I think this one right here is going to be the game that sneaks up on the Bengals and is like, how do you lose that one? That's going to be that one. This is going to be that game this year. Every single season, they have a game like that. Last year was the Patriots. 2023, who was it in 2023? The Texans. The Texans was a bad game in 2023. I mean, we had some bad ones in 2023. 2022 was definitely the Cowboys game. We had the Cowboys game in 2022. We had the Steelers game week 1 in 2022. In 2021, we had the Jets game where Mike White beat us. That, this year, that is that version of that game that the Bengals play where they blow it. And I'm going to say Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams get the best of the Bengals in this matchup. And the Bengals into the bye week are 6-3 with a 1-3 record versus the NFC North. Actually, 3 NFC North losses before the bye week, undefeated versus the conference, which will be big. Which will be big come the end of the season versus tiebreakers. But if you want to lose any games, I guess it's games versus the NFC. So be it. Okay. 6-3, 5-0 in the conference. The Bengals come out of the bye to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Acrisure Stadium. Played a few weeks ago, week 7. At the turnaround now. Mike Tomlin still trying to make that playoff push. Aaron Rodgers in the final stretch of his career here before he rides off into the sunset with one final run with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers play the Bengals tough every single year. It's gritty AFC North football. This will not be an easy game, no matter how good the Steelers are. The Steelers could have 0 wins at this point. The Steelers could have literally 20, not 20 wins, obviously, but They could be undefeated at this point, and the Bengals would have a tough out versus a Mike Tomlin-led team. And I'm going to say they lose two in a row. In Acrisure Stadium, the game won't be easy. That's the bottom line. The game will not be an easy out. And I'm going to say the Bengals drop that one versus Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Week 12. Patriots, Bengals in Cincinnati. Everybody saw how it went last year. Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots didn't even play a good game. They didn't play a good game whatsoever, but they walked us down. Joe Burrow played meh. He wasn't horrible. He's had worse games early in the season, but he was meh. The Bengals couldn't get anything going on offense. I think their lone touchdown was Zach Moss, if I'm being real. I don't think the Patriots will be a pushover this year. I don't. I don't think they'll be a pushover. A lot of people are predicting them to be a playoff team. I'm not going to go that far, but I do not think they will be an easy out for anybody. Drake May going into year two. They have some weapons with Diggs. Kyle Williams is there now. Mike Vrabel, good head coach, proven head coach. Has had playoff teams with the Titans before. He won't be an easy out. But I'm taking the Bengals to win this game and go to 7-4 after two straight losses going back home. They're gonna have to get this one, and I think they will. And then 7-4 Cincinnati Bengals, 6-1 in the conference. You go into your defining stretch of the season. Back to back to back in November, or I guess the Ravens game's probably early December, but you have at Baltimore on Thanksgiving, you have at Buffalo the very next Sunday, and you have versus Baltimore the week after that. These three games are not going to be easy. If the Bengals can go 2-1 in these three games, I'll have utmost confidence that they will be a competitive playoff team. You have, in my opinion, the two best teams in the AFC in back to back to back weeks. That's not an easy thing to do. On Thanksgiving night, Baltimore will be rocking. It always is on prime time. They always play the home primetime game versus the Bengals. Since 2021, they've had the game in Baltimore on prime time. Or since 2022. It's been since 2022, I think. But again, won't be easy. Thanksgiving night. I'll say it right now. With these two games, I do think the Bengals and Ravens will split. So take it or leave it as you will. I think they'll split. I do not think the Ravens will beat the Bengals twice this year. Everybody saw the two games last year. They were generational. Week 5, they played a banger. Week 11, they played a banger. Lamar and Burrow. Lamar will do his thing. Burrow will do his thing. Chase will do his thing. Derrick Henry will do his thing. This will be a treat on Thanksgiving night. And hopefully, I'm eating a turkey leg after this with a Bengals win. But in fact, I think the Bengals will drop the game in Baltimore and lose 3 of their last 4. I think this is one that they end up dropping, and I hope they win it because Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I'd love to see a Bengals win on Thanksgiving, and the Bengals only played on Thanksgiving one other time before, but I'm gonna say the Bengals drop this. 7-5. You're reeling a little bit. You've lost 3 of your last 4 games. It's time to turn up. You're in Buffalo in November. Cold weather. Week 14, 425, America's Game of the Week on Fox. How will you respond? Joe Burrow is 2-0 versus Josh Allen. Beat him in 2023, beat him in the 2022 playoffs. Everybody knows the Hamlin game, but I'm going to say Joe Burrow goes to 3-0 versus the Buffalo Bills, and this might be the one that gets me flamed. I think the Bills will be no pushover. I think the Bills might be the best team in the entire NFL this year. I'm putting that out there right now. Doing a little bit of a spoiler this video. I think the Bills will be a Super Bowl contender. I think they'll be one of the best teams in the AFC. I think they'll be a top 2 team in the AFC. Debatably, I think they might be a top 1 team in the AFC. Josh Allen is that good, the reigning MVP, obviously. In the closing days of, what is it, New Era Field? New Era Field? Let me think. Oh, it's Highmark Stadium. New Era Field, Highmark Stadium, and New Era Field. The final few games in Buffalo, in this stadium. I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals are reeling a little bit. 3 of the last 4 losses, that's one they have to get, and I think they will. 8-5, the Bengals improve to 8-5. 7-2 in the conference is big. Week 15. As I said, you know who I'm picking here. It's the Bengals. I think they split with the Ravens. They go back home December, early in the year. Burrow, at this point, Lost to the Ravens on Thanksgiving night. He knows they've lost to the Ravens enough. Lamar Jackson, what is he? 9-1, 8-1 versus Joe Burrow. He's got the better of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has only beaten Lamar Jackson once, which that was 2021. That was a crazy game. Jamar Chase went insane. It was kind of his coming out party, and the Bengals knocked the brakes off the Ravens. But they come back home to Cincinnati, closing the season. They clinch an above 500 record, go to 9-5, and they get the win versus the Ravens. I think the Bengals and Ravens split. Okay, and this will be a little bit of a fun one. Sunday Night Football, Week 16, closing the final three games of the season now. Bengals at Dolphins. Miami in December. What more could you want if you're a fan going to a game? What do I think of the Dolphins? I think they'll be all right. I don't think they'll be a pushover. I think if they miss the playoffs, Mike McDaniel could. Who knows? Mike McDaniel might be gone by the time this game kicks off if the Dolphins don't start well. I think this is his make or break year. I think he has everything at his disposal he needs. The Dolphins' offense should be good. I think Tyreek Hill will have a little bit of bounce back here. I think Jalen Waddle's still there. Devon Achane, they have weapons across the field. I think the defense will be decent. They did lose Jalen Ramsey. The cornerback situation there is a little bit of a question mark. So I think the Bengals will win this game. I think they're a better team than the Dolphins. I think that this is the time of year where the Bengals usually start turning it up. Joe Burrow plays well towards the end of the year. There's no reason the Bengals will be fighting for maybe a division title at this point, depending on how good the Baltimore Ravens are. And they'll be fighting to stay in the playoffs at this point, depending on how good the AFC wildcard race is. So I think the Bengals get to 10 wins here and beat the Dolphins. Week 17. Is this one that sneaks up on the Bengals? Do I think so? Arizona Cardinals at Cincinnati Bengals, potentially a Saturday game. It's a TBD game right now. It could be played on a Sunday, could be played on a Saturday. I think the Cardinals will be feisty this year. I'm not going to lie, I do. I think they'll be a little bit feisty team this year, depending on how Kyler Murray plays. I think if Kyler Murray is even serviceable, the Cardinals will be a middle of the road team, 8-9, 7-10. I do not hate Jonathan Gannon. A lot of people are a little bit critical of Jonathan Gannon. I think he is a fine head coach. I think he's done a fine job since he's been to Arizona, but it is a big year for him, and there's no denying that. Depending on if Arizona's fighting for a playoff spot or not. If Arizona's not fighting for a playoff spot at this point, I will be taking the Bengals in this game at when the time comes. Obviously, there's no doubt about that, but I think Arizona will be a little bit feisty. I think they will. I think they'll be feisty. I think they have good weapons on offense. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think they'll give the Bengals defense some fits. And I think they'll get this win in a little bit of a sneak up game for the Bengals in week 17. And they drop to 10-6. And we finished the season against the team that we started it against. 10-6. A win gets you in the playoffs. Division hopes at this point, and my predictions will probably be done. It's the Cleveland Browns at Paycor Stadium finishing the year for the Bengals. And I'm not taking the Bengals to lose this game. I'm just not. It's just not happening. I think the Bengals are going to end up winning the game. I think they're going to be a wild card team this year. I think they'll be in the playoffs. I do not think they're going to win the division. A little bit of a spoiler. We'll talk about that more next week. I think Baltimore will win the division. We'll talk again. I probably said it a million times. Talk more about that in the predictions next week. I think Baltimore will be a little bit better this year. But 11-6, the Bengals will be, in my opinion, 4-2 in the division, 10-2 in the conference. 10-2 in the conference is big. That'll give them some good. That'll give them some good tiebreakers. Depending on how good Denver is, maybe the Chargers, Steelers will be in that race. Patriots, maybe Dolphins, teams like that. That will be in the wild card race. That will be very, very good to have in the head-to-head. 6-3 at home, 5-3 away. 2-6 versus winning teams. 9-0 versus losing teams. 7-6 versus playoff teams. Well, playoff teams, they're everyone's 0-0 technically in the situation, so that really doesn't matter. But yeah, that is my schedule prediction for the Bengals this year, 11-6. I think will be their final record. If you guys did enjoy this video, please like, subscribe to the channel. That will be greatly appreciated. This will be going up later tonight. It is Friday. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see y'all next week for NFL prediction. We've got fantasy draft this weekend, got college football this weekend. It will be a big, big weekend. So have a good one. See y'all later.